Have you ever noticed that sometimes the harder you work on yourself, the more resistive your inner blocks become? It's kind of like trying to catch smoke with your hands. The tighter you grasp, the more it just slips through your fingers. I've been there. A few years ago, I was deep in what I now call my transformation addiction phase. So I'd wake up at 5 a.m., try to meditate for 20 minutes, journal 3 pages, do some breath work, recite affirmations in the mirror, take a cold shower, and that was all before my actual morning routine even started. I had reminders on my phone to check in with my mood, apps to track my habits, a stack of self-help books by my bed that were slowly turning into a safety hazard. I was doing all the right things. Hell, I was doing all the things. And you know what? Some of my deepest patterns, the ones that really mattered, weren't budging. Not even a little bit. Like, what's the point of that whole morning routine when I'm having 4 glasses of wine in the evening? Well, it wasn't until I completely burned out on personal development that I had this wild revelation. My kind of aggressive pursuit of growth had become its own form of resistance. It's kind of like those little Chinese finger traps that we played with as kids. The harder you pull, the tighter it gets. Well, if you listened to last week's episode with Elizabeth Husserl, you heard me open up about my own experience with financial blocks. Even though I've always been pretty good at making money, I discovered that my subconscious was running some pretty interesting programs around holding on to it. And like many of us, I had to learn that true wealth isn't just about the numbers in your bank account. It's about your relationship with abundance itself. But it's not just about money, though. These sneaky little subconscious patterns pop up everywhere. So maybe you keep dating the same type of person, or you procrastinate until you're drowning in deadlines, or you can't stop binge watching Netflix when you should be adulting. Whatever it is, there's usually a deeper pattern at play. I mentioned my money story later in this episode too, but first, let me break this down with some science. So research in neuroplasticity, which is just your brain's ability to change, shows that forcing change often triggers our threat response. So it's like trying to manually override your body's operating system. Your brain basically goes, nope, not today, and then it doubles down on old patterns to keep you safe. There was this really fascinating study from 2023 that found that people who approached change with gentle awareness, so basically just noticing their patterns without judgment, showed way better results than those who attacked their issues head on. And get this, their changes actually stuck around longer too. So this isn't just theoretical for me anymore. After years of testing different approaches with myself and my clients, I've seen firsthand how a relentless pursuit of fixing ourselves often keeps us stuck in the very patterns that we're trying to break. The self-help industry is projected to hit $14 billion by 2025. That's billion with a B. Yet mental health challenges are still on the rise. Something isn't adding up here. So I've been quietly working on something that addresses this exact problem, a completely different approach to transformation that works with your resistance instead of against it. And I'll be sharing more about that in a few weeks because this is my most accessible program yet. This is really what my vision is of helping as many people as possible. But for now, I want to dive into this topic with someone who gets it at a deep level. So let me ask you, what if the key to real transformation isn't in adding more techniques to our toolbox, but in fundamentally changing how we approach the whole process of change itself? What if the very resistance we feel towards our blocks holds the secret to dissolving them? And what if, stay with me here, all of those blocks you've been fighting aren't actually the enemy? Well, today's conversation blew my mind, and I have a feeling it might shift something for you too. Our guest is Brandon Epstein, a mindset coach who experienced his own profound awakening through what he calls an ego death. After this experience showed him the deep programming holding him back, he developed a unique approach to transformation that works with our resistance rather than against it. So in this episode, you'll discover why fighting against your mental blocks actually makes them stronger and what to do instead. The surprising way your body holds the key to accessing and transforming subconscious programming, and how to use the principle of polarity to turn your biggest blocks into your greatest strengths. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. You guys, workplace stress is killing us. 61% of people are dealing with stress levels that are way beyond normal. So if you're feeling it, you are not alone. I used to think I could just push through everything, work harder, sleep less, pretend I had it all figured out. But that approach nearly broke me. I am all about following your joy. If that voice in your head is telling you to make a change, listen to it. Maybe you are ready to quit your job. Maybe you do need to flip your whole life upside down. But either way, you need support and tools to navigate it well. And that's where therapy comes in. Modern therapy teaches you how to set boundaries without feeling guilty, how to manage anxiety before it spirals, how to make big moves from a place of strength instead of desperation. And BetterHelp has over 30,000 therapists and has helped 5 million people worldwide. And you can talk to someone from your couch. No waiting rooms, no awkward scheduling. Therapy gives you the clarity on whether that voice telling you to make a change is your intuition or just the Sunday scaries. But either way, you deserve support. As the largest online therapy provider in the world, BetterHelp can provide access to mental health professionals with a diverse variety of expertise. Unwind from work with BetterHelp. Our listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/mindlove. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/mindlove. Let me ask you something. How much time did you spend last week thinking about what to eat? Planning meals, making grocery lists, wandering around the store like a lost tourist. I used to waste entire Sunday afternoons on this, and it was exhausting. Then I found Hungry Root. Hungry Root fills your cart with personalized picks and plans your week of meals, getting smarter with every order. They have over 15,000 recipes to choose from each week, and most are ready in 15 minutes or less. I'm actually headed to Michigan this week, and I had my Hungry Root order delivered there. So I already know that I have meals ready and plenty of snacks for the kids without scrambling to find a grocery store. It's just handled. And what I love most is their smart cart technology. It learns what I actually like and then recommends groceries, recipes, and supplements just for me. So no more buying spinach that rots in my fridge. They screen out over 200 additives and only source high quality ingredients. The time I've gotten back has just been life-changing. So take advantage of this exclusive offer. For a limited time, get 40% off your first box, plus get a free item in every box for life. Go to hungryroot.com/mindlove and use code MINDLOVE. That's hungryroot.com/mindlove, code MINDLOVE, to get 40% off your first box and a free item of your choice for life. hungryroot.com/mindlove, code MINDLOVE.
Usually the things that people want to focus on are the areas that are already going well, right? But through going through this baseline testing, what we identify is sometimes you want to focus on achieving more in your career or in your finances, but there might be a big issue in your relationship. And if we resolve that, maybe it doesn't feel like you need more money, you need more success. Maybe this is just like the leak in your boat that's constantly making you feel like you're being weighed down and you're going under. And so that's the first step always. It's just let's get awareness of the different areas of your life. And then we can identify, okay, if you're doing terrible in this area, I guarantee you've been programmed to fail in this area of your life. Otherwise, you would have great results.
Turn up your frequency with Mind Love. Bite-sized brain hacks for seekers, dreamers, and doers. It's time to give your mind a little love with your host, Melissa Monti.
Well, I internet stalked you a little bit because that's what I do. And
of course. What we all do, right?
Yes, whether you know it or not. But I love your content. I'm all about really identifying those mental blocks. And I remember when I was first touching on this subject years and years ago, I was surprised at first it just sounded like a concept. And then when I started to actually break through things and feel like, oh my gosh, there could be one conversation that all of a sudden it's like I would open up a whole different level of life. And that's what the last 10 years or so have been. But even now, with what I know, I'm still coming up against hidden little things in the psyche that I'm like, oh, I didn't know you were there. So I'm so excited to go deep on all that today. What inspired you to write about breaking through mental blocks and just achieving greatness?
Yeah, well, a few years ago, I died. I had an ego death. And through that experience, I went through an awakening and actually started to understand how I was programmed to fail. And this was revelatory for me because I went a lot of my life just unconscious to how I was creating my reality. And by how I'm creating my reality, I mean, listen, there's all this external data, right? Things are happening around us in any moment. And then we're bringing it in through our five senses. We see it, hear it, smell it, taste it, touch it. But then we actually create our own experience of that based off of our programming that lives beneath the subconscious. So it's not consciously in our awareness. So it's happening automatically. And then it's creating our feeling experience. And we take that feeling and it drives our behavior. And so a lot of us are just living on this loop. And I definitely was. And so unless you put yourself on a new loop, you're going to keep living the same hallucination over and over again. And so when I had this awakening experience, it revealed to me so much of the programming that was holding me back. And so I reprogrammed it for myself with the help of a mentor at the time. And it changed everything in my life, improved my relationships and increased the amount of money I was making, improved my health. Most importantly, it gave me real peace of mind. It gave me the ability to get out of an anxious state and be present. And so I just felt really passionate about bringing this to the world. And so since then, the last 5 or 6 years or so, I've been taking dozens of clients through my process of reprogram them to succeed. And eventually got to a point where I said, let me write a book on this. Let me tell the story of how I went down this path in the first place. And then let me give people an actual playbook. Because at this point, I can't work with everyone at the one-on-one level. So here's my playbook and people can do it for themselves if they'd like.
Tell me about your ego death. What led to it? What cracked you open?
Yeah. I had an experience with the Bufo alveolus toad. So it's chemical compound 5-MeO-DMT. And I heard about it through the Mike Tyson podcast, Hotboxing with Mike Tyson. He did it actually in the first episode of his podcast. And I think I had heard of it before then as well. But just hearing a little bit about his experience and who he was in those early episodes of the podcast after having that ego death experience, it really intrigued me into having one of those experiences for myself, because I knew that I was very rational, logical, just, conscious mind dominated. I always wanted to have control. And I knew that like that was leading to a lot of my anxiety. And I didn't know the depth of the program that was creating everything in my life, but I knew that I needed to let go. And I also knew that it would be, kind of a vicious process to let go, but I was ready for it. And so, yeah, what you're seeking seeks you. It didn't take very long for someone to send me in the direction, actually out there in Riverside, California. So I was living in Los Angeles at the time, to go have this experience. And I did it. And it was rough. It was a very rough experience because, as you can imagine, if you build your identity up through this ego your entire life, and then it's just ripped away from you in a moment, and then you're put back into it again, you realize that it's all built off of something that isn't as stable as you thought it was. This is me, this is my name. And then like you have that taken away from you, like, wait a minute, I'm way more than this. There's something spiritual. There's something connected to a source much greater than me. And that's the real me. So what is this me that I've been experiencing? And you realize that you've constructed this and you've been constructed by your early life experiences, parents, society, community are what we collectively believe to be true, as a species at this point in time, all those things. And then, I had the opportunity, like, okay, well, what's actually working for me and what's not? And so I was very fortunate at the time. I had a very successful fitness company online, had a big YouTube channel. So I barely had to work at the time. I was maybe working a couple hours a week. So I took 6 months of reprogramming my subconscious. So I went deep because what I understood was if I wanted to be the coach for other people, I really need to clean up my inner world so much to where I could be a clean and open vessel to actually feel what's going on in other people's bodies without confusing it with what's going on in my body. And so I went in on it. I did that over a 6-month period. And of course, there's, like you talked about in the beginning of this podcast, there's always going to be like the governor is going to turn on, right? You get to a new level of success, you're going to find something that you didn't even know is there. But I did most of the heavy lifting for my previous, 28 years of life in that six-month period. And definitely the most profound experience of my life. And set me on a whole new path, which I'm really grateful for.
I've had 2 5-MeO experiences. And the first one was wild. It was so much shorter than I expected something like that to be. And yeah, it was like I left my body. I can't explain it any other way than how I assume it would feel right before I die, like as I'm dying and
Yeah.
releasing from the body. And then the other time was, it was a cocktail of ayahuasca and 5-MeO going around in like a vaporized bag. And I remember right before that, my husband and I, at this time in our life, we were scrappy, budding entrepreneurs, had no money, living in a tiny little studio apartment. We had to build a loft just to like fit our bed. And we got this opportunity and I had been looking for it. I was really intrigued by it. And I kept asking people where to find it. And they're like, it'll find you if you,
Yep.
if it's meant for you. And it did within months. So there's this opportunity presented and it was fairly expensive because of the cocktail of things being offered. And my husband and I were just like, this is not smart for us to spend our money on, but we decided to swing it anyways. And I just remember the drive back the next day and we're just laughing. And it's like, that's the best thing we could have done because none of this is real. It's all problems that feel like it's keeping us in a cage right now. And it just like, no, like life is a playground. We just need to start creating the conditions to experience it that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think one of my big moments right after the experience too is that like everything is organic. Everything is organic matter. And like it's all like I think like we think of like, oh, that's nature and that's not nature. But, you know, after you have an experience like that, where you're in the oneness, you come back and you realize it's all nature. How could it be here if it's not? It's all God. And so that perspective is interesting because I think we like put some things in this like bucket of this is holy, this is sacred, this is not holy, this is not sacred. But if it's all God, it's all holy and it's all sacred and we are all holy and all of us were made perfectly. And this kind of brought me back to like the work I believe so much in now is like when I'm working with an individual, I'm like, you're perfect. You just got programmed with a bunch of bullshit. And we have to clean that up to reveal your inner planet and the organic version of you that you're meant to be and that you truly are when you remove all these masks.
I was just interviewing Dr. Tony Nader. He's big in the transcendental meditation space, and he has a new book called Everything is Consciousness, or it's all consciousness. And it's this concept that every time things feel heavy, even just that thought can make it lighter because how much weight can consciousness really have? But I'm curious, you talk about putting yourself sort of in this accelerator for your own reprogramming. And I know that's what you work with clients on also.
Yes.
Where do you start? When you were like, okay, I've got some work to do, what was your first step? Because there's so many tools that we can access. What was your first step? Because there's so many tools that we can access.
Yeah, I was very fortunate because I had a mentor who helped me go down this path. And so I've been on this consciousness expanding path for quite some time. Actually, when I was 18 years old, I was playing college football and I rode the bench my freshman year playing and I was looking for solutions. So I went into a supplement shop and the owner of a supplement shop happened to be this super spiritual guy who had studied everything from neurolinguistic programming to hypnosis to energy training and was a real life mystic. And so at that point, he kind of like swapped out my idea for like, I need some new creatine with, I need to improve my consciousness. And so he started me down the path then. And I saw the real world application because I came back and I had a great season playing football after that. And I started sharing all these tools with my teammates. And so that put me down the path initially. And so we worked together for a few years, but then I went away from it and I started applying my stuff in the world. And we hadn't worked together for years up until I had this Bufo experience. And I was like, all right, if there's going to be someone who's going to help me put the parts back together, it's going to be this guy. And I reached out to him and we rekindled our relationship. And he's the one who came up with the program. And I've kind of since made my own version of it because I think we all like internalize these tools a different way. We take our life experience, we take all the tools we learn from other places and we make things our own. And so he gave me his program initially, which was called the Inner Planet Cleanup Program, which he does with people where he has you go through all these core beliefs and has you go into a deep meditative state to just uncover what do you believe to be true about yourself? What do you believe to be true about other people? What do you believe to be true about the world? So these core beliefs that you have, and those are the ones that are kind of like dominoes, because we have all these beliefs about like specific things, but if you deal with the core beliefs, oftentimes it will resolve a lot of these like surface level things where it's like, oh, well, I believe I'm afraid of this job interview, right? Well, maybe like the deeper thing is like, I believe I'm not worthy of doing something I love, right? It's like a much deeper, or I believe I'm not worthy in general. And so it's like a domino effect for a lot of them. So he took me through that initial process, and then it was so transformative to start. I ran with it and I started adding all these other techniques that I'd used in the past, and I kind of made it my own and put myself in a little accelerator. But he was definitely the catalyst for that.
I remember just reading a lot of self-development books in my 20s, and oftentimes they'd resonate deeply, and other times, just by the title, I'd be sort of turned away from it. And one of the topics that just never felt like it was going to resonate was worthiness. And I didn't believe it was going to resonate because I always felt as though I thought highly of myself. And it's because I think I was aware of many of my strengths. But when I started to uncover what worthiness issues actually manifested into, I realized that was my biggest problem. That I could have deep worthiness issues, but also feel great about my sense of humor or my sense of intelligence or my ability to learn. But I might choose horrible relationships because I didn't think I was beautiful enough, or I was always comparing myself. And so sometimes the issue that we need to work on is so hidden beneath layers of our own understanding of what these concepts are, our own filter of how we're looking at what's holding us back. Sometimes we don't even see those things. So how do you identify which areas of a person's subconscious needs programming?
Yeah, I take them through a baseline testing to start. So I just look at actionable things. So I say, let's look at your peace of mind. Where are we? 1 to 10. 1 is like you don't want to live anymore. 10 is you have this sense of complete wholeness. You're complete. Let's look at your physical health. What is your satisfaction with your health and vitality? 1 is you're knocking on death's door. 10 is you feel like it's at its peak. Let's look at your satisfaction with your career, not how much money you make, but your satisfaction with what you do for your career. 1 to 10, where are we at? Let's look at your finances. How satisfied are you truly with the amount of money that you have and that you're making consistently? 1 to 10. And then relationships. So we look at your romantic relationship, and whether you're in one or just your perception of that area of your life in general. 1 to 10, give it a score. Your tribe. So what are your relationships like with the people who don't necessarily need anything from you, right? The people who are there for you because of who you are and not what you can do for them, and giving that a real score. And then work relationships, because most of us, we spend most of our time working. So those relationships are really meaningful. So I take people through a baseline when we get started of just like scoring each one of these areas. And usually the things that people want to focus on are the areas that are already going well, right? But through going through this baseline testing, what we identify is sometimes you want to focus on achieving more in your career or in your finances, but there might be a big issue in your relationship. And if we resolve that, maybe it doesn't feel like you need more money, you need more success. Maybe this is just like the leak in your boat that's constantly making you feel like you're being weighed down and you're going under. And so that's the first step always. It's just let's get awareness of the different areas of your life. And then we can identify, okay, if you're doing terrible in this area, I guarantee you've been programmed to fail in this area of your life. Otherwise, you would have great results. And so then we dig in there. I might ask them, okay, well, what is it that you want to achieve? What would it look like if you were a 10 out of 10? What would you need to do to get to 10 out of 10? And then even just asking that question of like, what would it look like? What would you need to do? My kind of gift is that I'm able to feel into people's bodies, and I can feel like if different energy centers in their body start to light up, they might feel it. I might feel it and they might feel it because I feel what's going on in their body. Their upper stomach start to light up, and the anxiety or fear lives there. And it's like, oh, I'll ask them, what do you believe to be true right now that makes you feel afraid when I ask you about staying consistent with your workout program? Like, should be a matter of fact thing, And then what we might uncover is someone says, well, I believe if I make time to work out, then my business is going to suffer because I'm not going to have enough time to put it there. And then what happens when my business suffers? Well, I'm not going to have the thing that gives me my self-esteem and so on and so forth. And we go to the worst case scenario because that's what the subconscious does, right? It always goes to the extreme. So that's the rabbit hole. It's baseline. Where do you want to go? What is the feeling that's creating the resistance? And then in the physical body, we'll uncover what that program is, and then we'll work through it together.
You mentioned that we all have areas where we underperform, even if they don't really seem like a priority.
Yeah.
What is a common area that a lot of people struggle without really realizing its impact on their overall success?
Well, I work with a lot of high achievers, right? A lot of professional athletes, a lot of professional business people. And I'd say that a lot of the issues come around romantic relationships. Um, just because, let's say, I work with a lot of guys. I do work with women as well, but like just because a man has a lot of success in his career or he has a certain level of status, you would think that he'd feel very confident with his ability to approach romantic relationships, but oftentimes that's not the case. There's a lot of low self-esteem there. There's worthiness issues. There's fear of judgment. There's fear of being hurt. And so those are things that oftentimes get exposed. And those insecurities, oftentimes, especially with these high performers, leads to infidelity and leads to trust issues and leads to a man oftentimes taking on more of that feminine role and forcing the woman to be in the more masculine dominant role because he hasn't really learned how to bring his strength into the relationship. And so he instead goes in there as a place to like, hey, you take control. And that usually doesn't work out well for either of them because the woman oftentimes has to end up being almost like in a motherly role where like they don't want to carry that burden. And so those are the things I see very oftentimes in high achievers. And I was talking to a buddy of mine earlier who is also a coach, and it's like, these guys, they have these public personalities we work with who have like very well known. You'd think like this guy's crushing with the ladies, but in reality, a lot of them have a lot of insecurities and they would never even ask for help in that area. The only way that you would even identify that is going through that baseline testing and starting to dig in deep to like, okay, how does it really feel to be you here, and creating a safe enough container for those things to come up, because they're not going to share that with just about anyone in the world except for maybe their coach in that container.
I'm reminded of somebody I worked for years and years ago. Multimillionaire, good-looking guy, lived in a penthouse, Aston Martin, like all the things. And that was one of the first times I had been doing a lot of inner work where I was just able to look at somebody else and be like, oh, I see a clear issue there, because all romantic relationships, it was just like throwing money at it. Let me fly you to France first class. Let me do this. And it was like the worthiness issues were screaming like I'm not enough on my own without, without this money. And even though I was recognizing this in somebody else, it made me, I remember just one day in meditation, actually, I was just thinking, which one of these issues is so clear to other people about me? Because, we all have those things. And as you were talking, I was trying to think, because I was like, yeah, I'll take you up on your offer to coach me around something.
Yeah.
And I'm a very intentional person. I've spent the last 15 years really curating my life. But there's one area that I find an inner resistance towards even approaching, and it's finances. And I think it's because at one point I didn't have a lot of money. I spent years and years in college being like I'd be shopping at the mall at a designer. I'd be looking at a designer purse and I'd have $150 in my bank account and be like, well, I can overdraft 100 so I can get this $230 purse. And now it's completely different. I make good money. I trust in what I'm doing, but maybe it's just that I don't know how to budget, but I refuse to even approach the subject of really getting clear on that. And I know that it holds me back, because even when I'm bringing in abundance, because I don't have a clear picture, I can feel a weight of lack. And so it's something that I've promised myself will be by the end of 2024, 2025 at the latest. It's something I'll approach. So where would you start with me?
Yeah. I would start by having you close your eyes and going in, because as you know, there's nothing outside of us. There's no information outside of you that could ever give you any clarity. Oh, it's all inside. And so if anyone who's listening to this right now isn't driving or operating heavy machinery, I recommend doing the same because I bet you have an issue around money, or you might have an issue around a relationship or something that will be applicable if you go through this. So Melissa, go ahead and just take a deep breath in through your nose. And on the exhale, just sink down deeper and deeper into your body right now. And I can already start to feel there. Yeah, there's that sensation right in the upper stomach. Feels like it's like upper left a little bit, or just below the sternum. Money, 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 money. Yeah, why don't you just your money? Yeah, get a hold of your money. Yeah, organize your money. I feel it kind of go down to the lower stomach. I say organize your money, control issues down there. Ooh. What do you feel in your body as you just think about like, yeah, controlling my money and just doing the right thing with my money? And stay down in it with your eyes closed as you feel into that.
In my body, I almost always notice issues in my sternum, but for some reason I have it right upper chest, like just a weight.
Oh yeah. And what do you think needs to be said? Like just blurt it out. Like what do you need to say about money? Like the thing that you haven't said yet that just needs to be just say it. The thing that you know and you just kept it down inside it, just say it now. What is true? What do you know to be true about how you're managing your money? Say it.
There's like 1,000 different thoughts, and I think that's the problem. I need to untangle it.
Mm,
On one hand, I feel great about money. I've made so many strides in my business. I feel really good about how I'm earning money. I feel good about the amount of money that I'm making. And then when I think about, okay, creating a budget, really tracking everything, it's like this dark cloud just goes in front of all the thoughts, and I still don't
yeah.
want to look at
Yeah.
it.
And when you start to go there, I feel it more in the sternum.
Yeah.
More in the sternum area. So I want you to sit right in the middle of just below the sternum. Just put your awareness right there in that feeling and just sit in the middle of that. Oh God, that darkness. Just sit right in the middle of the darkness. Oh, just so heavy and just, oh, it's not nice. I want you to sit right in the middle of it. Oh, and really what it is, there's only one thing that lives in there, and that's fear. That's all that lives in there. We could call a lot of things. We could give it different labels, but at its core, what is fear? So, what do you believe in to be true about managing and organizing your money, especially managing your money that's making you feel so afraid right now?
Things are coming up that I haven't really allowed myself to sit with in a long time. I think there's a fear of it going away. And so there's this subconscious pattern of really feeling the abundance now, which can lead to being a little bit frivolous with spending. I've been in a lot of situations where my company shut down, my parents had a big investment stolen from them twice. Just a lot of moments of feeling like I have it and then it's just gone. And so it's hard for me to want to, oh, yep, that's it, because I feel like I'm going to cry. It's
Go
hard
in
for,
there.
it's hard
Go
for
right
me
in
to
there.
want to look at the future because there's this deep seated doubt that it's only in the now,
Yeah.
which on one hand is true, but on the other hand makes it really hard to plan.
Here we go. Sit right in the middle of the upper stomach, right in the middle there, right in that feeling. Go all the way through it here. Sit right in. I know it hurts. It doesn't feel good. It's like not where you want to be. We have to move through it. We have to move through it. Sit right in the middle of it. And I want you to say this out loud. We have to accept it. I believe my money's not going to last.
I believe my money's not going to last.
And let me know when you've accepted that.
It's hard to accept it because there's this other belief. I've been working on reprogramming
Mhm.
it. So it's like they both live side by side.
Yeah. But to some degree, that's what we just found out, right? You just said in the future, 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 fear on the future. Says that right now there's something still living in the upper stomach. So if you accept it, we can remove whatever imprint is still in there if you want to.
Yeah, there
I
is.
know it's like an ego death because you've done a lot of work on this. So the ego doesn't like to have to do it again, but just do it with me and we'll be done once and for all.
Can I share with you what came up that's allowing me to then accept it?
Sure.
Um, I think the belief I've built is that I'm not going to do anything where it's not going to last. I trust in myself to keep earning and to be abundant in that way. But even now, if there's another fear that's like, what's happening in the world right now? What are they doing with currency? And so I was like, yep, no, I still believe that I still have a belief in there that my money's not going to last,
Mm,
and that it's not even always in my control.
yeah,
It's not about me
definitely.
failing, but
Yeah. What sounds like to me, if I was going to enable it, it's like I won't have, like the fear is I won't have financial security in the future.
yes, security.
Yes.
That comes up every time I do inner work.
That's it. So I want you to accept it and say it out loud. I believe I won't have financial security in the future. Ooh, full ego death right there.
I believe I won't have financial security in the future.
Yeah, just accept it. It's true. You won't.
Yeah,
Have you accepted it?
there's a belief. I believe I won't have financial security in the future. I accept
Yeah.
that.
And I want you to visualize a timeline for your life stretched out in front of you. Everything to the right is in the future. We'll get there eventually. We're not there yet. To the left's the past. We already been there. It's dead. It has no control over us. But right in front of you, that dark cloud does live in front of you. And it says, I won't have financial security in the future. And it carries with you everywhere you go. It just follows you around. Yeah, I want in the future, but I won't have it in the future. Don't even look at it. Don't look at it. Don't plan. Don't do it because we're not going to have it in the future. I want you to feel all that emotion, all the fear that's there, all the uncertainty. And I want you to breathe in deeply through your nose. Exhale, and a powerful wind is going to move from right to left. It's going to pick up this dark cloud that says we won't have security in the future. It's going to move this dark cloud to the left, to the left, to the left, to the left, all the way and easily into the past. And as soon as that dark cloud goes into the past, it dissolves because the past is dead. And as it dissolves, we come into the present. I want you to feel yourself flying through time and space in the present moment, living in the eternal now, 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 and the emptiness of the now. Feel how light it is here to be in the now, how empty this space is here. What's the opposite of not having financial security in the future?
Having financial security in the future.
That's right. I want you to say, I believe I will have financial security in the future.
I believe I will have financial security in the future.
And instead, let's just bring it into the present, the eternal present. I believe
I
I
believe
have financial security.
I have financial security.
Breathe it in deeply through your nose. Exhale, feel that move down through every cell in your body as it seeps into every cell from your head, your neck, your shoulders, your upper arms, lower arms, hands, and fingers. Say it again. I believe I have financial security.
I believe I have financial security.
Down through your upper back, your chest. Feel your whole body being permeated with this energy as it moves down through your lower back, your stomach, your hips, your thighs, your lower legs, your feet and toes. Oh, feel the energy settling into your heart. Notice that financial security doesn't happen in the future, it happens right now. Feel this energy move through your body into the timeline of your life. We got rid of the old energy, so now we replace it with this new energy. And this new energy takes form on your timeline. It says, I have financial security. and it surrounds you in this energetic aura. I want you to feel yourself being held by this energy that says, I have financial security. I am financially secure. Breathing it in, just feeling it settle into every cell in your body. Everywhere you go, everything you do. And because you believe it to be true, you make it true. And now knowing that you're financially secure, I want you to feel there's actually a little bit of inspiration to maybe you don't even necessarily have to make a budget, but just tracking your finances, being aware of them, just staying in full awareness of them, because that's what someone who would do if they were financially secure. And so now I want you to feel yourself in your heart fully embodying someone who's financially secure. And what inspiration comes from that, from being someone who's financially secure?
Yeah, it's so interesting. The visual I'm getting right now is like rays of light coming through a big white cloud instead of a dark cloud, breaking through something. What I find interesting is the duality of two things. I mentioned earlier how for a long time I wouldn't look at worthiness issues because it just wouldn't refuse to believe they'd resonate. And as we were going through that exercise, was like I could feel the self I've been building bumping up against this old version that I've been overriding and refusing to look at. And I think so often that happens, which makes us even more resistant of actually healing our blockages, because we're like, no, but I'm doing this over here. That's not me anymore. Not realizing that we haven't been allowing light to shine on some of those shadows. And so we're just holding two versions, giving the universe and our own identity mixed signals.
Yeah. Sometimes there's just levels, of depth that we can get to move the energy on something, to get into full alignment with that identity. And you telling me that you didn't want to look at it, that was just a clear signal that, there was still some healing work that had to be done there. And so I hope moving forward, there will be inspiration to stay in full awareness of your finances because you are financially secure.
Yeah, that was helpful. I remember my first time doing energy work. It was like my logical brain kept wanting to shout bullshit. And then over the next couple of weeks, because I was just like, oh, you're just walking me through something. This can't be doing anything. And then over the next couple of weeks, I broke through like 3 things that I could not penetrate for years, or for a lifetime.
Yeah.
And that was when I knew. I was like, it's all in this energy. It's all in these energetic barriers. And we're just creating stories. And we prop those stories up and we think that they're real. But if we just are willing to sit with that energy a little bit longer to really feel what's in there for us, what needs to move through our bodies, then we don't need to convince ourselves of a new story. The new story comes through. I love how you said, what are you inspired by now by being this person who's financially secure? Our inspiration, our ideas are attracted based on our beliefs about ourselves, about what's possible, about the world. Yeah. And so even just so funny, it can be such simple steps, but even just sitting there in that I am financially secure, it's like my mind is bringing in all the truths, because the truth is I am. And I know my tendency to overspend. So I have created safeguards. I will spend it on stock. So it still is like that dopamine hit of the purchase, but it's going into a place where it's growing. And so it's funny how I had this fear or this unwillingness to look. And so it's also, even though it's feels like it's saving me from what I'm afraid of, from an insecurity, from a lack of security. It's also holding me back from really feeling what I've built over the years, the financial security that I have had. And so even though we think we're just resistant in one thing, we're actually resistant to all of the good in that same area as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I work with, pro athletes that are making 10 plus $1 million a year, and they still live in this scarcity mindset because they're still in that old story, that old programming. So it doesn't actually, like, your physical reality actually doesn't even matter that much sometimes. Like, you could be living in a new physical reality and still be running the same programming, which it sounds like that's kind of where you were as well. It's like, well, I'm even doing the things to safeguard and be financially secure, but there's still this like trigger that doesn't allow you to fully enjoy the fruits of your labor, and everything that's come to fruition is continuing to come to fruition for you.
Once you take people through that process, oftentimes people feel an almost energetic momentum. And I think a lot of us are so used to reaching outside of ourselves for healing. And that creates that kind of resistance of sitting with what we do know. But I worked with somebody on something similar, and I remember them just saying, well, I don't want to lose this. And so how do you recommend people hold on to that energy, hold on to the new beliefs, or is it not even needed? How do you recommend people hold on to that energy, hold on to the new beliefs, or is it not even needed?
Yeah, I encourage people to go through an integration of the new belief. And so, if we were doing a session, like, this wouldn't be the only one, right? There, we would find all the different points of resistance in all the ways. And we end up with a script, actually. There'd probably be a handful of beliefs that we transmuted in the session. And then I would have you record a voice memo of you reading these out loud. And then I would mix it for you with some binaural beats behind it and have you listen to it when you're waking up in the morning, when you're falling asleep at night, and throughout the day. And that script is going to help integrate, because what voice is in your head, it's not other people's. Like, you shouldn't listen to YouTube motivational videos. You want to listen to your own voice, because that's the voice that's usually in your head. So that's the integration you do. And you also want to do it when you're waking up and falling asleep, because you're in more of a slow brainwave state. You can access more of that primary alpha brainwave state, which allows you to incept these new beliefs in. Because what are we trying to do? We're just trying to imprint this into your identity, and you have your subconscious know, like, yeah, this is who I am now. And it learns through repetition. So that's very helpful. So the sessions are great, but I always do integration with my clients to make sure that this stuff sticks. And then we just monitor it. I don't do one-off sessions with people. I do seasons of work. It's like, all right, what are we achieving here together in this season of work? Let's get after it. And so we'll monitor it, and week by week see how those new beliefs are being integrated. And if they need extra work, we keep listening to them. And if you listen to them and they're matter of fact and they're like, yeah, of course, then we don't have to keep listening to it. So we just listen to it until it moves to that, unconscious level where you're unconsciously competent. It just is. You don't have to think about it at all.
There's an app called Think Up that's one of my favorites, because you actually record your own affirmations and then it puts it into a meditation.
Very
But I
cool.
love that. There really is something powerful about hearing your own voice saying something, because you're less likely to argue it. So often our inner thoughts are saying ridiculous bullshit, and we're just accepting it because it's coming from us, and we're like, well, it must be true. It knows me, when it's furthest from the truth. But I'm curious, I know you talk a lot about core wounds. How do core wounds come into this process?
Yeah, early in my work, I used to go address core wounds and have people move through that past trauma. So a core wound is something that happens usually between the ages of 0 and 7. Those are like primary programming years, where it leaves such a big emotional imprint that this piece of programming that is developed through this event can hold you back for the rest of your life. And so it could be someone like a parent yelling at you and belittling you, or it could be sexual abuse, or it could be violence. The worst thing that ever happened to you is the worst thing that ever happened to you. But that core wound is usually one of the worst things that ever happened to you. And then the corresponding story and then programming that came from that. And so what I've learned over the years is that I don't need to anymore go back and address the actual event. I just need to uncover how it's showing up in someone's life in present day, present time. And so again, we come back to that baseline. We identify where they're struggling, and then we see what is the corresponding programming that came from that core wound. And sometimes, we'll download, we're in deep session in meditation and someone will be like, oh yeah, I remember this happened. Okay, that's fine. But we don't need to go relive that actually. We can just see, what do you believe now to be true because of that, right? Where is your lack of safety or your sense of unworthiness, and where is that living in you right now? And when we're able to identify that, we reprogram it, and then the core wound is resolved, because it was never actually about what happened. It was about the meaning that you created in your body after that event occurred.
Yeah, I have spent time unraveling the core wound of the security thing. And I've tied it back to just, the I think 0 to 5, I felt very out of control of my situation. My parents divorced when I was like 6 months old. My mom had to move in with my grandparents. I knew my dad had no money, just constantly hearing how my dad didn't want to work. And so then I got a stepdad, and we moved in with him. And what I carried through a lot of that was I was always expecting somebody else to save me. Like somebody else needed to save my dad. Somebody else needed to save my mom. Where are we going to go live now? Oh, now this person has a house. And none of it ever really felt like mine. And so I think that's why I have a tendency to build up my fortress around myself, but at the same time, really not trust in its stable nature.
Yeah. And hopefully in large part, like you had. And now that you're in this place of you're financially secure, that's just it's an old way of being. And that's not you anymore. It's not your story.
When you work through something and you find that old beliefs come up, do you have a visualization or a process of just kind of dismissing those, letting them go?
For myself?
For yourself or your clients?
Yeah. I mean, I do the same thing that I did with you for myself or with any other client. Because sometimes like we do all of the inner planet cleanup and we get to a place where like things are pretty good, but then one day someone comes in, checking in with them, something's not good, something's a little bit off. So whether that's my client or me, definitely happens. Just feel into the body, see where the tension is, feel into the energy centers. Usually it's going to live down in like the second chakra, third chakra, sometimes up in the throat chakra, but usually it's going to be down like the lower chakras. And in those energy centers, like feel the tension and then feel the emotion. And I'm going to go in there and uncover whatever program's in there. And there's levels to this, definitely, because once you get past through all your like surface level stuff, then it becomes more of like, okay, outside of just my programming, how do I need to see the world new? Right? How do I need to see everything new? How do I need to step back from what I've been told to label everything around me in events and create a new paradigm? Like that's like the next level of like seeing everything new. Again, I don't know how else to describe it. It's like, okay, this is a table, but what if I saw it before? What if I saw it as if something that wasn't told me that this is a table? Or I look and I saw my couch and I didn't have a label for it as a couch. It's like, what if I could just see and observe everything and just be more experiential with it instead of placing all my judgments on it? And that's like the next layer of programming, of course, that like runs deep, 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 deep into us as humans, because there are some things that we have this deep programming around that perpetuates the fear of separation, between us as humans, from other people, animals, each other. And that's why we have war. That's why we have conflict and all those things. So that's, in many ways, I've done most of my like personal programming. Now it's like I'm coming up and I'm confronting a lot of those things individually. It's like, how do I fully let go of fear? How do I just move on from that altogether? And so that's like, the deep spiritual work that I'm currently moving through at this point.
I have a 3-year-old and we're in pretend play phase right now. And it's funny because going into pretend land for hours at a time is exhausting. Like sometimes I'm like, I don't know what's harder, coming up with more stories for you or physically playing. And I mention this because I tuned in a couple months ago. I was actually the one that kept trying to get him to come up with stories, and then it just took one day, and now he's like so creative all the time. And I remember just sort of feeling exasperated, like, man, I don't want to do this. And it's like, just look, think of this like a workout. Imagine how many benefits there are working out my creativity muscles like a child every single day. And I was reminded of this because you said, what if I was looking at everything anew? And I, in that moment, had this huge rush of gratitude because it's part of the pretend play that I'm forced to do right now all the time. It's like, what if this couch is not a stick or is not a couch? Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking of the book. There's a book called This Is Not a Stick. And so the whole book is just, what are you doing with that stick? And then he's like, it's not a stick, it's a wand. And it's like an outfit. And, yes. And so it's just those times of thinking, oh, there's so much work to do with spiritual development and self-development. But sometimes if we just apply that same mindset of what's going on in my current situation, what am I resisting? It could be a task at work, cleaning your house. And it's like, what if you can just transform it? Like act like it's a whole different activity. I often use the example of like washing dishes. Somebody once told me, no, think about how you'd feel washing dishes for the first time if you got out of prison for 40 years. You'd be like, oh my God, the warmth and the soap. And every time I wash dishes now, I can do it with a mindset of gratitude. And so I just encourage anyone out there listening, what in your life do you hate doing, or what is annoying to you, or what feels challenging? Can you shift that to where maybe it's actually the gateway to your next level of growth? I want to talk quickly about the principle of polarity. How did this concept help you in transforming limiting beliefs?
Yeah, I think understanding that, yin yang is everywhere in the universe. And so if there is a belief that's holding you back, right? If it's creating resistance, if it's a block for you, then that same energy can't be created nor destroyed. So we can reclaim it. And we can use the opposite polarity for it. And I've been very interested in polarities for years. Like when I broke my arm, when I was first learning this stuff back when I was, I think I was like, might have been all the way back to, when I was like 18 years old. I think, when I was first learning this stuff, I put magnets on my bone to use a polarity to try to heal myself. And I've just been very interested in that concept of reclaiming the energy and transmuting and alchemizing it. And so when all this programming stuff came up and I started learning about it, it made just a lot of sense. I'm like, oh, well, if the energy is holding me back, you propel me forward. And so it's just an act of alchemizing the energy that already exists. And so it's actually very exciting for me once I am able to identify with the client what is holding them back. So I'm like, great, it's going to be an awesome propulsion system for you because you're going to be able to use the opposite polarity to move you forward now. And it usually works that way because whatever's been holding you back can now become your springboard.
Well, I love leaving listeners with something either actionable or one thought to really focus on and to keep front and center for this week. If you were to give them a little bit of growth work, what would that be?
Depending on where someone is on their journey, if you're new to this type of work and you listen to this conversation, it was like a little bit woo-woo for you. You're like, I don't know, there must be something there, but I'm not a full believer yet. I recommend that you just set alarms in your phone to go off every 3 hours to ask you, how does it feel to be me right now? And this exercise itself, just do this for a week. It's going to lift the veil on your actual human lived experience. And you're going to be able to identify, like, how are you? You know, do you want to continue to participate in the same habits, the same environments, the same ways of being, or do you want something to shift? And I think if you just do those notes, those alarms every few hours for a week, you're going to have a real clear picture of your life, and you're going to be able to step into awareness, and you can do whatever you want with that. But I think it's very empowering to get on the awakening path just through that initial awareness.
Well, thank you so much for just the energy you bring to this topic. For listeners that want to learn more about you and your book, where's the best place for them to connect?
Yes, the book is available on Amazon. It's called Program to Fail by Brandon Epstein. And if someone wants to explore getting a subconscious audit by me and doing some of the work we talked about today, they can go to my website, thebrandonepstein.com. You can apply there. I'm also very active on Instagram, Brandon Epstein _. So you can check me out, shoot me a DM. Let me know what you thought of the podcast today.
All of the links to this episode will be at mindlove.com/379. Your challenge this week is to set alarms on your phone every 3 hours to check in with yourself and ask, how does it feel to be me right now? Do this for a week, even if it feels a little bit weird at first, and notice what patterns emerge, what environments trigger certain emotions, and how your energy just shifts throughout the day. This pretty simple practice can actually reveal a lot about where we might be stuck and what's actually working in your life. And it's got me thinking too, because it's kind of wild how we're all out here collecting all of these amazing tools and insights, but sometimes it just feels like each new piece of wisdom just spotlights the gap between where we are and where we want to be. So that's exactly why I've created Living Mind Love. It's not just another thing to learn. It's your path to actually living all of this stuff that we talk about, and in a way that fits easily into your life, because I know we're all already busy. So if you're ready to move from knowing to being, join us at mindlove.com/waitlist. You'll be the first to know when we launch. And I also want to know how the challenge feels for you this week. Let me know how it goes. You can reach out to me at mindlovemelissa on Instagram. You can find all of my amazing sponsors at mindlove.com/sponsors. And don't forget, if you want a little pick me up first thing in the morning, sign up for the Morning Mind Love at mindlove.com or text the word morning to 33777. So thanks for giving your mind a little love today, and I'll see you next week.
Thanks for tuning into Your Higher Frequency with Mind Love. Head to mindlove.com for a free gift to keep your vibes up until next week.